Could it be true? It might be a more efficient and faster way to actually salvage and Star Citizen? I don't know. Let's jump in and find out. I recently watched a video from a YouTuber by the name of Fried Chicken. I put the link in the description to the original video in the bottom of this video, just so everyone can check it out. But he was claiming that he's actually found a faster way to salvage in Star Citizen, and this video left me with a lot of questions that were kind of unanswered that I really wanted to dig into and take you guys along for the ride. So in short, what he was saying is that if you move very quickly over top of the hull, without actually burning all the way through the hull material, that you'll actually gain RMC a lot faster than if you do the traditional method of burning all the way through and then slowly moving your laser from the left to the right. This left me with a lot of questions, like for instance, what happens with salvage contracts? Are you taking enough of the RMC that you'll actually complete the contract? One of the other questions that I had is, in total on a ship, do you actually get the same amount of RMC in the end? So I had to do a comparison. So starting with the control sample, this is done the exact same way that everybody salvaged for quite a while. You just kind of go left and right, burning all the way through the hull and moving slightly over as time goes on. Both of these are done against the exact same ship in different areas of the Stanton, of course, but against the exact same type of ship. And I really wanted to test at what point do you complete the contract? Like how much RMC do you have when you complete the contract? And in total, how much RMC do you actually get off of the ship? The footage is obviously sped up just so you don't have to sit and watch the entire salvage process. But about 7 minutes and 47 seconds in, you'll see that I actually complete the contract. Now at this point in the video, I get about 6 SEU directly from the ship when the contract is completed. Now I did start with about 0.7 SEU, that's why it's slightly higher in the video, but it is about 6 SEU total at that 7-minute 47 mark. Now I do continue to go through and continue to salvage, and it takes about 8.5 minutes, 8 minutes and 26 seconds, I believe, to get to the total of 7.1 SCU. That's the total amount that I could salvage off of the ship, being incredibly picky using the old method. Now we'll compare that off to the new method to see exactly how much we get and when. So again, in this test, I'm using the exact same ship to make sure that I'm actually just kind of comparing apples to apples, because sometimes things can be a little bit different if you're not. So as I'm going through and I'm salvaging this, you'll notice that I'm kind of very quickly brazing over every single area, and sometimes you have to go back and hit an area multiple times. But your goal here is really to not puncture all the way through the hull. The idea is to really just kind of scrape off the top few layers of RMC off of each ship and then move on. So as I was doing this test, I realized it probably doesn't make sense to go through and make sure that I got the same amount of salvageable materials in total, because the goal was never really to maximize the amount that I get out of a ship. It was actually to try and spend the least amount of time to get the most out of it before moving on to another ship and really being just as efficient as I possibly can. You'll notice about 5 minutes and 54 seconds in, we complete the contract. Now that in itself is actually a lot faster than the original method that everyone uses. And just as a refresher, that was at 7 minutes and 47 seconds. So it shaves about 2 minutes off the contract completion, believe it or not. Now, one thing you'll notice is that in order to complete the contract, I actually did need to puncture all the way through. Otherwise, I wasn't taking enough of the RMC off the ship to actually complete it. So even at that, I did spend a lot of time going further into the hull than I really should have. Now, the thing that was interesting is that at that 5 minute 54 second mark, I've actually pulled 5.9 SCU off of the ship already, which compared to the 6 SCU that I got at the 7 minute 47 mark, I would say is about comparable. I mean, that's probably just a little bit of difference in the game, maybe a little bit of lag, but it's essentially going to be the same, and I'll call that a rounding error. What this really means is that using this new method of salvage, not only can you still complete the contracts, but you're doing them in almost 2 minutes less over a 7 or 8 minute ship. That means that's 2 minutes you're going to spend on your next ship, your next contract, getting the same amount of salvage material. It's actually pretty substantial when it'll add up as time goes on. I did go through and test this across multiple ships. Like I say, I had to run this test several times to actually get numbers that didn't seem made up, quite honestly, because I was quite surprised at how much better this approach really was. I've also run this against salvage panels as well, and you get a very consistent result there as well. So, I mean, if you're looking to really optimize your salvage output, this might be a new approach for you. Like I say, I didn't go to the extent that I pulled all of the RMC off of the ship that I'm showing you here when I salvaged it. But in other tests against panels, it does actually add up to be a comparable amount of salvage or RMC that you're getting off of it. But it really doesn't make sense for the purpose of this test. The idea here is to get the most amount off that you can as quickly as you can and move on. If you're going to spend the time and go back and really try to grab every single gram of the RMC that you possibly can, you might as well just do it the old-fashioned way, honestly. Now onto my theory as to why this is actually more efficient, because I do think it's important to really understand that as well. But notice as I'm quickly going back and forth using the new method, that the efficiency gauge is like 70 to 80 to 90% efficiency. What that really means is that you're pulling in a lot more material at any given point. That does kind of reinforce what we actually discovered here, that it makes it a lot faster. Now, when you do it using the old method, one thing I noticed is a lot of times that efficiency is only sitting at the 20 or 30% mark, which really means that you're wasting a lot of time. So the one thing I'm still trying to prove out is if I were to expedite the old method but still use the same approach and try to keep the amount that I'm salvaging at that 50 to 70 mark, does it really make that much of a difference? And in the preliminary testing I've done, it really doesn't. This is why I believe that this is the reason that you're actually getting a lot more RMC a lot quicker, because you're simply being more efficient every time that you're grabbing it. Now, the other theory that I have is that the salvage material might actually be thicker on the surface than it is against the ship. Or the RMC, sorry, not the salvage material. Based on that, the first few layers might actually give you more in your hopper than the fewer layers as you actually scrape or get down to the hull itself. Now, I don't think it's actually coded that way, and just kind of looking at the comparisons and some other tests that I've done, I do believe it's actually the first theory, but the second theory was the first one to cross my mind, so I figured I would mention that out as well. There you have it. It might actually be a much better way to salvage than the way that we've been doing it for all these years. Once again, a huge shout out to Fried Chicken. That was an amazing video. Thank you very much for the great idea, and thank you for publishing it for the community to see. You easily could have just kept that to yourself. Please, everybody, go over to his channel, like and subscribe, and do all that fun stuff. And while you're in the mood of liking and subscribing, please like and subscribe to my videos as well. I do try to release regular content, and I don't want you to miss out on my next video. Thank you again for coming out, and I hope to see you in the verse.